Two different ways we can bring data in. For those of you who are using the Farmer Pro edition and you've got the API set up with the different monitors, on the online tab at the bottom section down here under the field display sync area, you would have all of those different monitors and different monitors or different APIs would be listed there, and the data would be there ready for you to process that data in. For those of you who are on the Farmer Basic or are not using an API, we can use the File menu and read job data and read the data in from a USB drive. So the data that we're going to be reading in today is some Greenstar 3 data. You'll see here in my list, I've got all of the different FODDs installed. So you can see we can import everything from AGCO to Ag Leader to Case IH to the New Holland line, Trimble, John Deere. We can pretty well pick and choose any of those main manufacturers out there, and we can read their data. So like I said, in our case today, we're working with Greenstar 3 data. So under the Greenstar 3 data, we're going to choose this last option, the Greenstar 3 data driver. If you've got an older Greenstar 3 monitor, you may need to use one of these legacy options. However, this new Greenstar 3 data driver should read all Greenstar 3 data as well. In that case, the next step is to go ahead and click the Browse button. We'll go out and browse, and the data that I have is actually on my D drive, and it's actually this harvest folder. And you see there is the GS3_2630 folder. We don't necessarily need to select that folder. We can just select the folder that's in and go ahead and click OK. The program will go through and validate and bring up a complete list of all of the data that's in that folder. You'll see that there are 4 separate tasks that were recorded on the monitor, primarily due to the different dates, start, stop times, and those kind of things. We're going to go ahead and select all of those. To select all of them, we'll go ahead and click on the first in the list, hold down on our Shift key, select the last in the list, and they'll all highlight in blue. Down at the bottom, we've got some different options there. The import resources without tasks would allow us to bring in all of the different resources that may be on that USB drive. So if we've got a lot of different clients, farms, and fields set up, we could bring in all of those. If we leave this box unchecked, it's only going to bring in the different resources we have for the jobs that we're actually importing. Update field boundaries will do just that. So if it finds an updated field boundary or a new field boundary on the data that it's bringing in, it will update the desktop software with those that new field boundary. The skip confirming farm field information and skip confirming supplies, equipment, and people. Those 2 checkboxes will allow the program to skip through any of the setup boxes on any new items and just go ahead and set those up automatically. You can always go back in and edit those at a later time if you would like to. On the left-hand side, we will go ahead and select the option here for delete flyaway points. Flyaway point is basically where you may have a little hiccup in your GPS, and now we've got a data point that's a mile or 2 or 20 miles away. The program will look at that and know that that data is an erroneous data point and go ahead and remove that. And the fixed bad time zone, there was a few of the John Deere monitors out there that have got some issues with the time zones not lining up correctly. So by checking that box, the program will automatically go in and look at that time zone, see if it needs to be tweaked, and if so, it'll make those corrections as well. The last thing we're going to talk about is the filter button. The filter button will allow the program or allow you to go in and set some minimum and maximum parameters on the data points that are imported. And the program will then edit those or edit out or delete out those data points as that data is brought in. If we check the use filter area, we can set a minimum acreage and a maximum acreage. So if it falls outside of those zones, the program would delete those data points. We'll go ahead and uncheck that option. And then we've got the use layer filter options here as well, where we can set minimum maximums on grain flow, mass yield, moisture, and speed. I'm going to go ahead and leave that unchecked, let the program just bring in all of the raw data. We can always edit that data as we need to later on. I always like to err on the side of caution. I'm going to go ahead and bring everything in, and then let me make the decisions on what I want to keep and not keep within the program. I'll go back through the validating. The files were highlighted there in light gray, but I do always like to make sure that they're highlighted in blue. And once we click OK, it's going to start through the process of reading that data, and then it'll process that data, and then here shortly it'll bring in the screens here as we move forward. The linker box here, anytime the program is importing data, doesn't matter if that's from a USB card or through one of the APIs, anytime the program sees information it's not 100% sure what it needs to do, it'll bring up a linker box to allow you to confirm how that data is handled. The operation resources is the data that's coming in. The desktop resources is the information that's already set up within the desktop software itself. So you can see in this case we've got two new pieces of equipment, and the program is going to set those up as new pieces of equipment because it found nothing that was close to that name that it thought that it needed to link it to. And that's absolutely fine, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that screen. Program's going to ask us for, on the commodity properties here, this is some 2016 data. So we've got 2016 soybeans, and the account is only going to show up for those folks that have the advanced accounting. So we will need to add soybeans into our chart of accounts, basically get us our soybean income account in the chart of accounts. So now it's going to go ahead and finish through the import process. It's got all of the information that it needs to get the data imported. And you'll see it's making, over here on the left-hand side, it is making multiple jobs. The program will go ahead and bring those in. Once they've came in, the program will do its best to go ahead and condense those down and merge those files automatically back together. Basically, these are as it's bringing the data in, it's creating a separate task for each load, and then it'll merge that data back together. All right, so now that you see that after the process is completed, it did create just a single job here in our management tree under our 2016 soybeans. If we go to our actual job tab or task tab, for those of you in Canada, you'll see we've got a single job here that's our harvesting soybeans enterprise for this field, or our action for the field. A lot of folks will ask why there's a dark colored box in the view column. And that dark colored box is just a visual way to help find jobs that you have not viewed yet. So in the seeding job that we've already looked at, you'll see that's a light colored box. If we check the dark colored box there, and now if we go to our map tab, now we see our yield map that's imported. As data is imported, the monitors record a lot of different types of information. So as we look at the views column down below the map, and if those of you who may not be seeing that views column, you'll need to make sure over on the left-hand side that we've gone to the layers tab, which is the tab there with the two boxes that overlay each other. And once we've done that, you'll see the displayed layers. It'll tell us what layer we're working with. It'll give us the list of all of the different types of views, and then it'll give us a legend for that information over on the far right. So we're going to go in and pick the most important, the one that most folks are most interested in, at least. So that's going to be our dry yield. So when we select that dry yield, you'll see that the colors on the map have all changed, and then our legend over on the right-hand side has changed to match that new attribute. So now we're looking at bushels per acre. So the program does a standard deviation type configuration when it's deciding what colors to make the map. However, one of the things that a lot of folks would like to see is they'd like to maybe see that broken down into a little more standard units of measure, maybe on like a 10 bushel, on 10 bushel breaks or something along those lines. So one thing that we do have the ability to do is to edit that legend. To edit the legend, we click on the button with the wrench there by the legend title. And we can go in here and create our own legends the way that we would like. We can either manually type in the new legend columns, our new legend breaks over here on the right-hand side, or we can tell the program that we want to use some sort of calculation to do that. I'm going to go ahead, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and go to equal ranges. I'm going to set my high at 60, my low value at 10, and tell it to break every 10. So the program's still going to go ahead and make us 7 colors. And once I click the apply button, you'll see that now we've got 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and then everything below 10 is going to be a different color there. We can adjust the colors as well. So if we don't like the red to green, we can go to a different, a different type of color. We can go to all one color. So some people may like to see that from green to white. Oops, green to white. We can apply those colors. So now when we click OK, the darker the green, the higher the yield. The white colored areas are our lower colored yields within that field. So that's one of the things that we do have the ability to do. As we look down at our different maps, we can look at an elevation map. So if you want to look at the elevation map, you can look at that view. Another one that's pretty common for folks to like to look at is the moisture. So there's our moisture map for that field as well. Once we've got our map created, we can add some additional type views. So if we want to take this yield map and we want to make a contoured or a gridded view of the data within the field, again, just to help better visualize what's really going on within the field, we certainly have that ability as well. So I'm going to go under our dry yield, select our base data, and click the add view option. I'm going to use the option for contour. We'll go ahead and just leave the default set here at the 50-foot. Average method is the option we want to use. We have average and inverse distance with yield maps and data where we have a lot of data points close together. We're always going to use that average option. Fill blanks, we'll just make sure we fill everything out to the field boundary itself. And I'm going to bump the smoothing up to about 80%. The higher the smoothing, the more free-flowing those breaks between those zones will be. And then once I click OK, the program will then go through and create that yield map that'll better represent kind of what's going on within that field. If we don't like that view, we can always delete that view and then we can create an additional view. We have those abilities there as well. So let's go ahead and we'll go back and to our jobs tab here, and let's look a little more at the information that was imported in with this harvest job. So if I right click on that job, I can go to the property screen, and that's going to bring up all of the information about that job. As we look at the very left-hand column, is going to be the totals of all of the information from all of the different loads. And as we go across, you'll see all of the different loads that were imported in that make up this job. If we go down our screen here, for example, we know that the dry quantity, if we get all of our scale tickets back, and we know that the dry quantity on this, the total actual dry quantity on this field should have been, so we'll say that it's 8,000 bushels even. We can manually overwrite the total dry quantity, and once we've entered that in, the program then will evenly distribute that across all of the loads proportionately, so that each of the different maps are picking that up. The other thing that we can do in this screen, if we have additional operators, so maybe we had somebody else that we want to have included as part of this job, we can go ahead and go to the add input, and if we had additional people here, we could select them and add them in as well. The same thing would apply for machines as well. So if we had additional machines or equipment that we wanted to have included in this job, we could add that in there as well. If we had the actual scale tickets, we wanted to manually go in and add those scale tickets so that the scale tickets could be tracked individually, you could go in and add those underneath the scale ticket screen. Again, another option for you to record, not required by the system. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the harvest destination. For those of you who have the advanced desktop accounting, you will be able to go in and choose off farm or any of the other storage locations that you may have set up. So in this case, we'll go ahead and we'll choose the off farm as our storage location. You'll see that'll fill all the way across as well. On down the screen a little further, you can see the weather information that was imported with the job information as well. So now once I click OK, the program is saying that letting us know that we've changed the harvest quantities, and it's wanting to know if we want to reconcile that map. If we answer yes to that, it's going to create an additional view on our map. It's also letting us know we have a 0 quantity. I want to say no to that because I want to go back in here and let's put we'll put $4. Oh, no, not for soybeans. Let's go $7.50 on our soybean. So now I can go ahead and click OK again. Again, we'll answer yes. And now it's updating that farming action, and it's wanting to know, since we have a variety map layer, we also want to update the yield by variety report, and we'll answer yes to that as well. And now if we go back to our map, you'll see we've got not only, let's remove that view and go back to it again. So now we have not only our dry yield, but we also have a dry yield reconciled as well. A dry yield reconciled is going to take into consideration the additional bushels that we've added into that and increase all of the individual data points proportionately across that field to make up for that difference in the yield quantities. The last thing I want to look at here if we want to do another, go ahead and right click on the job one more time. If we want to print this job, so if we want to print out the job information, we can do a right click and choose print. The program will bring up a print view for us. Again, it's going to show us all of the different regions. It's going to show us quantities. It's going to show us our labor. If we had cost on the equipment, that would be showing up there as well. Multiple page report showing all of the different loads basically that came off of that field. So that's another option that you have available to you. Other reports that we have available, if we go under our reports section, and I want to go to all reports, and I want to go to field, we can look at a yield monitor load report. In this case, we've got just the one field, so we'll select it. And the yield monitor load report is going to show, again, it's going to show us all of the individual yields, give us our total dry and wet quantities that came off of that field. So yield monitor load report is going to show the data truly as it came off of the monitor. It will not show any adjustments or anything that was made in the desktop software. So that's one of the reports we have available. Another common report that a lot of folks will use is this custom summary report. The custom summary report is one that our end users like to use, especially as they're going into verify yields at FSA, those kind of things. Go ahead and select our job there. If we had multiple jobs, so if we had 50 jobs or 50 different fields, we could select all of those at one time. What we like about the custom summary report is you can pick and choose what you would like to have included on that report. So we'll go ahead and we'll choose field name, commodity, and we'll go ahead and choose yield and average yield. If we wanted to include all of our FSA information, so that all printed out on the report, we certainly have that ability. And select the farm and the field as well. And now if I go to my reports tab and choose print, I'm going to make up, in this case, it's I didn't change the title, but it's going to give us our total quantities and everything. The area is showing as 0 here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to correct that. Basically what the program is looking at as it's looking at the area there, is looking for the tillable acreage set up on that field. So when this field was set up, we must not have gotten the tillable acres set into it. And I'm actually going to go back to the properties of the job. 155 acres, 155.1 acres. So now if I go back again to the properties of the field, and oops, not the enterprise properties, the properties of the field, and I put in my tillable acres as 155.1. Go ahead and click OK. And now let's go back to that reports. One of the new features that we've added fairly recently is under reports. If you've got reports that you use often, if you choose the option for recent, you'll be able to choose one of those files and not have to drill down through the list quite as much as we've had in the past there. So again, we'll go ahead and go to the report. Oops. I've got to update the enterprise properties here as well. If the acreage had been set on the field before the enterprise was created, the program would have automatically set that up. But since it was set up prior to the acreage on the field, we do have to go back and adjust that. So now we can see our field, our client, our farmer field name, our area, the commodity, our average yield, and then our total yield as well. So that information is all going to show up on that custom report. If you do want to change that name, so maybe we want to just call this our total yield report, we do have the ability to change that as well. So that's another one of the reports that's handy, that's commonly used. And then this field, since we do have a variety map available for it, if we go under our reports, all reports, we can go down to our yield variety report. And we'll go ahead and choose the 2016 soybeans. And now we can see the field that we planted. We've got our 2 different seed varieties. We can see how much area we had on each one of those. This was probably some replant. That's going to give us our yield per on bushels per acre for each of the different varieties. If we had multiple fields that had the same varieties in it, in the summary area here, it would fill in and show all of that yield by variety information. Then I guess the last thing that I'm going to spend a little bit of time with here is for those folks who do have the advanced accounting, where we can go in and manage those contracts. To set up a contract, we're going to go under the income, sales, and deposits, and then our harvested crop contracts. And this is where we're going to be able to enter in information on the contracts. But the contracts can be set up within here, simply as adding the vendors, enter in your contract information there, and that can then all be tracked through the desktop software. We'll go back to the read job data screen, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the other types of data. I know when we talked a little bit on the John Deere data, as we did the browse there was a folder that we're specifically looking for. If you've got the data on a USB drive, it's just the drive letter. If we're working with Case IH data, I would highly recommend this new beta option that we just recently implemented, a new driver that we created here in-house. It seems to be working very well. With the Case IH data, when you browse, you're going to be browsing and looking for a CN1 folder. So here's an example. You're going to be looking for the actual CN1 folder. For those folks who have got Trimble yield data, we go down under the Trimble yield data if it's coming off of the FMX, or if it's coming off of the FMX Plus on the TMX monitor. When you browse there, you're going to select the Ag GPS folder, and then once it's populated the screen with all of the different jobs, at the bottom of the list, the one that you're going to want to use to import to get your true yield data is the one that's called task data, yield data as the type. That's going to be the key as you're importing the Trimble yield data information. With the Ag Leader, we've got a new beta Ag Leader Ag Data Log that was just released here recently that takes care of the new in command and the new on all of the Integris. So that Ag Data folder, again, when you use the browse, you're going to browse and select that Ag Data folder as you're importing that data.